Hi, Chelsea, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good. I'm excited to be here.
Glad to have you. For anyone who's watching this on YouTube, will see that I have a different background than I usually do. That's because I'm actually visiting my parents this weekend. So there might be a little dog walking around in the background and a different kind of view, but we're here today to talk about your two birth stories. We're going to focus on your latest. That was a natural hospital birth. But do you want to take us back to becoming pregnant the first time and deciding to have an obstetrician in the hospital for your first and how that kind of went for you?
Yes. So, my first pregnancy, I did want a midwife immediately, but I found that it was very difficult to navigate having a midwife while also birthing in a hospital. There's a lot of limitations that the hospitals, at least in my area, had of not allowing midwives. Um,
From the outside, yeah, if you bring your own.
yeah. So there was a lot of barriers around having a midwife in the hospital, and it actually took a lot of research later on how to make that work for myself. But for the first time, the first pregnancy, I did go with an obstetrician, um, and it was fine for a while. Yeah,
For a while. What does that
yeah.
mean?
Um, I guess at that point, the first time you don't really have anything to compare it to. And so it was like going to a doctor, or just like your well visits. And it was just very clinical, very in and out. It was fine. And it wasn't until later on in my pregnancy where I started getting, we'll call it, strong advice from them on how labor and birth should go. And even at that point, it took a lot of advocacy to have the birth plan that I wanted.
And did
Because
you
I
want, yeah, did you want for that time to have a natural hospital birth at that time too? Yeah, that was your intention.
that was
Yeah.
my intention. I had a very long labor um, that inevitably did end up with intervention. But I think any, we'll say, like problem or issue in that labor or birth were complications created by the interventions and by that type of care,
Yes.
and it actually ended up causing complications that if just left to my own devices would not have happened.
Absolutely. I mean, this is crystal clear for me and for most of these, the listeners listening to this too. If you know about physiological birth, then you really understand that going into a hospital, just even moving into hospital kind of disturbs that physiology. And most 99% of what is done within that hospital setting is counterproductive to actually the physiology of a woman. So you ended up with interventions and so how did you feel about that birth after that birth?
Unhappy. um, I was very happy that my daughter was here, and I focused on that. It was frustrating that she did have complications. We had complications in that birth, and she did have time in the NICU,
Mm,
which, even looking back immediately after, um, was unnecessary.
yeah,
She didn't need that. If I could have had the opportunity to nurse her,
yeah,
and I wasn't given that, and there was, I think that the care that I had that time, there was a lot of fear.
Yeah.
put onto me. Like it was very fear-based. If you don't do this, then this.
Yeah. That's the
That makes
language. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was no question after that that there's no way that I'm not having a midwife if I choose to do this again.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
how
so
long between your babies and, when did you become pregnant again with your
um, my,
second?
yeah, my daughter was 13 months.
Okay, so pretty close. And then
Yeah.
you knew for sure you wanted a midwife. So this time around, you did your research and did you interview a few midwives or did you just find the right one at the get-go?
So I did interview a few. It was very limited. For whatever, I wanted a home birth in my mind so badly. For me personally, I think I didn't trust I was going to be able to get over my own fear that was just so deeply rooted in the area that I'm from of being out of a hospital. And I was very aware of that. And I didn't want any fear. So, so I did still plan to birth in a hospital just to not have to worry about that fear coming up for me. Um, which again is irrational and just deeply rooted from the area that, I'm from. And
Yeah, I think it's valid. You should birth where you feel the most safe. And that, for some, that's the birth center. For some, it's hospital. And for some, it's home. And it's not better to birth at home. It's
right,
better to birth where you feel most safe. That's where your physiology will actually work the best.
absolutely. Um, so within the constraints of the hospital, the midwives I was allowed to work with. I
Yeah.
did interview several, yes.
And you found someone you aligned with.
I did. Yeah. hmm and it was a different experience from the first appointment, the first meeting. I won't even call it an appointment.
How so?
It was so tailored to me. It wasn't standardized questions. It was about me and my unique experience of pregnancy and birth and asking questions about my first birth and um, asking me what I wanted and anything. And this is throughout my relationship with her, but like anything that came up that might have heightened my concern, she was so calm. Nothing was crisis. Whereas in other types of care, well, you have to go to the hospital. You have to go get checked. And she was just so calm and put me at ease the whole time. It was wonderful.
That is beautiful. And that's how it should be. And that really is the difference between OB care and independent or like private midwifery care. It's that continuity, it's that relationship, that, longer appointments, sometimes at your home. I don't know if she was at your home at any time, but um, it's just such different.
Yeah, I didn't have she wasn't in my home, but meeting with her in general is exactly what
Mm,
you're saying.
yeah, beautiful. All right, so let's dive on into your birth story. Did you
Mm.
have any early signs of labor approaching for you?
Yes, I did. For over 2 weeks.
Oh.
Just yeah, he teased me a lot the last 2 weeks. And at first, I think it was just more the Braxton Hicks, but then definitely in the 2 week period, I had contractions that would get regular for hours, and they would pick up in intensity. And I know there was two separate times I thought, this is it, we're going, and then they stopped.
And that's, it can be like that with definitely like with second time babies or when you had more babies. Um,
Mhm.
And it can also be, I don't know, I'm curious if you had that and then your mind was like, okay, let's go to hospital. And that's when they peed it off because you were in early
Mhm.
labor and had you stayed at home and not had that thought of leaving your home. I don't know. I mean, we're so sensitive to these
Yeah.
things in labor.
Yeah, I mean, and that very well could have been exactly what happened because in my first, that's the exact, it completely stopped when I went to the hospital. So this time I did have it in my head. I wanted to stay home longer and
Mhm.
be just sure. I did forget to mention, just a quick back to my first, I tried to wait and I ended up having my water break, like in the movies,
Mhm.
all over my car. Which actually was funny and it wasn't stressful or anything. But um, this time, fast forward to my second birth, I had towels in the car because I'm
Mhm.
a bit far from the hospital. Um, so I was very prepared for that to happen, the second round.
Right. So you had that going on and off for 2 weeks, and then what happened?
And then when it finally was happening, I didn't have symptoms for several days. They had completely stopped. So it just wasn't on my mind as strong. And I remember joking, we had, I forget what we were celebrating. We were celebrating something and there was pizza. And I remember saying, I need hot pepper flakes because I need to start my labor. And so I had all these hot pepper flakes on my pizza and several hours later, I'm not saying it was the red pepper flakes, but I'm also not saying it wasn't the red pepper flakes.
Well, the old wives' tale is to eat like a curry, right? Or like spicy food. And that's kind of has similar effect as to like castor oil in a sense of like it irritates the bowels, right? Spicy food. And the
Right,
bowels are just next to the womb. And so it kind of irritates the womb. So if the womb is ready, it can kickstart it, right? So obviously it doesn't work if you're not super ready, but it can definitely, there's a reason why that's an old wives' tale. It's not totally not right, right? It can
right,
definitely just push you over the edge when you're super ripe and ready, and you could have probably also maybe just gone into labor by your own devices without that as well during the night. We
I
will
was
never know. We will never know.
yeah, I was doing all the things, so it could have been anything. I like to think it's the red pepper flakes.
So, what week were you at this time?
I was 40 plus 5.
Okay, that's a good
Yes.
time to have a baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a little earlier, second baby. He was a little earlier than my first by a week.
Yeah. So your first one was 41 and something. Yeah. Which is
Right.
so normal. Yeah. So normal for a first time mama. Like so normal.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so the whole thing was so much quicker, which I know everyone says. And I think it was a combination of it being my second birth, as well as like my labor was completely different. How I handled my labor was completely different. Sorry. Um, even at the beginning, just allowing myself and encouraging myself to rest. Um, so I started getting tingles and I said, around, 6 p.m. in the
Mm.
evening. And I didn't think much of it because this has been happening for several weeks. I wasn't getting excited. Sorry, I have a tickle.
Mm.
So we all went to bed like normal. And about 1:30 in the morning, they woke me up. So I actually slept through a decent amount of them revving up the contractions. And so 1:30 they woke me up. I didn't wake up my husband. I just kind of woke up and I walked around a little bit in the dark and just tried to see what I was feeling and how often and just get a little in tune, got some water. And then I laid myself back down and we'll see. And then maybe 30 minutes later, they picked up in intensity and frequency like pretty quick. So I said, okay, I'll call my midwife. So I still hadn't woken up my partner and I called the midwife. And again, just the comparison between her and my obstetrician the first time, there was no rush. There was no concern. It was just, yeah, this is supposed to happen. Like, yeah, that's great to hear. I'm so happy that let's see. And
Yeah.
it almost was shocking to me it was so comforting and so supportive and so what I needed, you know, rather than get your bags, go to the hospital, it's time to go. It was just
Mm,
different.
mm.
So
Yeah,
I got to
because
say,
it's no emergency,
right,
it's just you're in labor. Exciting. And yeah, like we'll see. It could be a baby in an hour, it could be a baby in a day, it could be a baby in a week still. You never know. Like, yeah.
yes. Um, so yeah, we got off the phone and I just laid back down in bed for about another hour. So I think we're at like 3 a.m. And then I sit thinking, okay, it's time to wake up. It's time to wake him up. So I wake up my husband, say, hey, things are happening. And he into action. um, so yeah, he's getting everything ready. I call the midwife again and I just remember her saying, okay, yeah, I'll meet you at the hospital, but have fun. She told me to have fun. And I'll never forget that. You have fun with it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I had my mother-in-law come over and be with my daughter, and we head out maybe like 3:15 in the
Mm,
morning, and go to the hospital. And by the time I get to the hospital, I think they're about a little under 4 minutes apart. Um, the contractions and my water is still intact, and even the process at the hospital, they got me right into my room, right
mm,
into my space. There was no wait, which I had the first time,
mm,
and just got me settled and comfortable immediately.
mm,
And I kept all of my clothes on. I kindly declined any sort of cervical checking. It just didn't feel necessary. I didn't want to be touched. I really didn't want to be touched. Just right then. Yeah, so they let me have my food that I brought. I brought like an entire watermelon is what I wanted. Um, yeah, it was just very different. I didn't want any, yeah, it was just different.
Was
So
this in the same hospital that you birthed the first time?
it was.
Right. So was it just because this midwife was like a privately practicing midwife? She had like obviously rights to be in the hospital, but they knew that you were kind of her client, so that's why they left you to be really cared for by her and not by them.
Yes.
So like their
Uh,
rules didn't really apply in your room, essentially.
correct.
Wow.
Yes. And it was the midwives that do work in the hospital. They have their own space. Like it was a completely different room with access to water birth, which
Right.
was
So it's
planned.
kind of like a different unit to
Yes.
compare to the obstetrician's wing or whatever. Okay, I see that. That can be in different hospitals around the world, actually, that you have almost like a birth center, more so unit that only has midwives in it. Yeah, right.
Yes. So it was like that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And so the process just continued from there. they offered me any sort of support, any like all the tools, the yoga ball, the peanut ball, they had essential oils, they asked me about the lighting that I'd like and things that maybe I wouldn't even have thought of in that moment. Um,
Yeah,
they encouraged it and reminded me of my options.
beautiful.
Yeah, so I alternated just what I was doing, and my husband was so involved in the best way. Every single contraction he was a part of. Um, he reminded me and encouraged me to move, to like, if I was on the yoga ball for a long time, he encouraged me or invited me, I guess, to do a different movement, to move my body. Do you want to walk with me? Um, and that was everything. I think I didn't allow that support the first time because I didn't know that I needed it in my first birth. And so allowing him to be that support for me, um, I think helped my labor tremendously.
You felt
Um,
supported.
oh, so supported.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and when things started getting a little bit more intense, right? Um, so this is interesting. I'm interested on your thoughts on this. So in my head, I planned on a water birth and I was ready. I was craving water. Just when I got there, I just
Hmm.
was ready. And they encouraged me to hold off. And I said, okay. And so then things started feeling more intense. And I said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to get in the tub. And they actually encouraged me to not get in the tub until I was 6 centimeters dilated, which I hadn't
Mm.
heard of before.
Yeah. Well, okay. First of all, before I answer that, I'm curious, has your midwife arrived yet?
Oh, she was there before I got there.
Oh, okay. I thought it was other midwives caring for you. Okay. Then
Oh,
I
sorry,
then
no.
I'm all on top of it again. Okay, so back to your question. So things are kind of changing in maternity. Um, in some places it's still very old school. They still follow this very rigid old school idea of a woman, opening 1 centimeter an hour, this linear process, the Friedman's curve, which is bullshit, has been debunked over and over again. Everyone with a brain knows that, but there's still, especially hospitals and especially obstetricians, following this bullshit still. Excuse my language. And so it used to be that a woman like had to be 3 centimeters open to be allowed to come into hospital and like stay in the hospital. So like there was this like check at the door, like you have to do a vaginal examination, you have to be 3 centimeters. And then when like kind of evidence and research caught up on that, first and foremost, there's no such thing as a linear process. They kind of thought, okay, well, actually, it should be like 4 centimeters. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, it should be 6 centimeters, which kind of it's good in a way because it saves women from the interventions in a hospital, but it also creates obviously a lot of stress to have to be potentially 6 centimeters to be allowed to stay on the ward or in the birth suites or whatever. Again, this is different in different countries, different hospitals, different states, even in a state, different hospital, it's just there's no one way, everywhere, right? So the 6 centimeters, going back to your question, is now believed to be that's when you're in active labor,
Mm,
which again actually really is bullshit because you can be one
right.
centimeter and open, especially as a second time mom, especially when you've opened the channel already. But also
Yes.
sometimes first time moms, there's absolutely no such thing as it not happening for first time moms. Some first time moms have just, their first labor just in a couple of hours, so like really quickly, right? And go from 5 to 10 centimeters in half an hour. Like, so there's no such thing really as that you can say, oh, you're 6 centimeters and now you're allowed, or now you should, or now it's better. One thing with going into the water quote unquote too soon when you're in early labor is that it can slow things down. And if you're in a hospital, then that is not a great thing because they do have much more of a timeline. Obviously, also, the longer you're in labor, the more kind of tired and exhausted you are, obviously. So, like,
Right, of course.
maybe you don't want to prolong it potentially if you've already been in labor for a long time. So there's always rhyme and reason to potentially not get into the water. However, I have also been with women who, first time mama, second time mama, whatever, who might be in her early labor. And then she goes into the water, quote unquote, too early, quote unquote, in early labor. And it actually speeds things up. She opens because she's relaxing into the sensation. So it can work both ways. It can slow things down or it can open her and quicken things up, even in early labor. So there's no such thing as really that you can't go into the water. I think all women should 100% decide when they want to do whatever they want to do in labor, whether it is to eat, to go in the pool, to walk around, to lie down, to sleep, to not sleep. You know, it's woman led, woman knows best. And she'll also notice if she goes into the water and things slow down, she'll go like, oh,
Mm,
okay. Well, the woman is clever. She knows what's going on. She'll probably go like, oh, actually, maybe I should get out for a while. So I'm very much for anyone to do whatever they feel like they need. Yeah, to follow their own instincts. However, that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from.
that makes all the sense. I can't say that I was happy in the moment about being encouraged to wait.
At that
But
time, though, did they do any vaginal examinations to say that you weren't 6 centimeters?
no, they were, maybe it doesn't make much sense now, but they were asking me or inviting me to check me. And I, at that time, still just didn't want that.
No,
Um,
of course not.
and yeah, in my head, my waters hadn't broken. And I know that they don't necessarily have to. But I didn't want I didn't want to affect that process
Yeah.
by being checked. Um, so I still declined any sort of checking. Um, yeah, and so in an ironic turn of events, that happened. And then, we're not getting bored because it hasn't been that long, but my husband and I are like, okay, well, what do we do now? Um, and so my husband invited me to slow dance,
Oh,
um, just in the hospital, like right there by the bed. I am not exaggerating. We started slow dancing, and not even 20 seconds later, my waters broke.
oh,
Um, so was it a timing? Was it just being
was it
close?
the oxytocin of smooching your husband?
I go. Again, we'll never know, but just holding each other and having that like gentle movement, and again, for me, my water's breaking both rounds was like a movie. It was a complete, everything emptied right then and there. It was a gush. It was a no, I heard it. Maybe I heard it internally. I don't know. But I heard it, and before I felt it, I knew it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, so many women say that
Mm,
they hear it, even if it's maybe not. It's like, well, you do. I guess it happens within your body, and maybe there is an internal echo of that pop, even if no one else would hear it. Yeah, it's
mm.
so many women say that they hear it internally, that they're like, I don't know if it actually was a sound, but I knew it. I heard it within me, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's so
Mm,
true. It's true.
mm,
Yeah, whether it's the just kind of that starting to go more internal and you're hearing it, or I don't know, but yeah, that's was true for me as well.
mm.
Um, I was still wearing all my clothes at this point, so this is when I did end up changing, because it got on everything. And Yeah, I think at now I said I'm ready to get in the water. And if that means I have to be checked to make sure, then sure.
Hmm.
Um, I did forget to mention that my midwife was there when I got there, but she did ask me, she had a student with her.
Mm.
Um, and she very kindly, like, I felt very in control of the situation, asked me if I would mind if the student joined the journey. And I was more than happy at that time to have her come join us.
That is so beautiful because, obviously as a student midwife, like I am forever grateful to all the women that ever allowed me to be their student midwife. And especially when it comes to vaginal examinations. I mean, it takes practice to learn, and for the women who actually feel comfortable to allow a student to practice, to actually have a feel as well, it's invaluable.
Mhm.
Saying that, I'm obviously a person that also really don't like any kind of vaginal examinations that are not absolutely necessary, but I do applaud you to, and obviously that you felt comfortable in saying yes to that. And that's really important, that women never ever say yes to anything that they don't feel comfortable with, especially such an intimate thing as a vaginal examination. You can definitely say no to students, but it's such a beautiful thing, the women that do feel obviously rapport with that student and feel like, yes, this is okay for me, because it's such a learning opportunity. Mm.
Yeah. She was very grateful that I did say yes, and she, verbalized that to me. But it was like we were in it together. We were learning this new stuff. Well, not as new to her, but we were in this together. So she was very kind. And yeah, so I did, she did check me. And I want to say I was exactly at that point, I was exactly 6. Um, so I got like, yes. Uh, um, so they start, I'm just very eager. I'm like, okay, this is happening. I get to have my water birth. This is everything that I wanted. And just the parallels, the not even parallels, the comparisons, the differences between just everything. I can't say enough the differences between just in the care alone and how that affected my experience from first to second time.
Yeah.
Um, so they start running the water, and I am noticing I'm not quite in La La Land, right? I'm only 6, and so I'm still in the external world, aware of my surroundings, and she drains it, and I say, "Oh, that's interesting." But okay, and then they fill it again, and a couple minutes later, my midwife comes to me and she says, "Chelsea, there's no hot water."
No. What?
What are the odds? She said, I don't know why. I'm going to go ask someone right now. So I said, oh, it's no problem. They're going to fix it. It's no problem. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. They'll fix it. That is not what ended up happening. The hot water boiler for the entire floor. We were midwinter when this happened, and for whatever reason, there was no hot water working on that
No.
floor. I was devastated because I had already celebrated the like my I get to have my water birth.
Yes, I see. I understand.
Yeah, there was that. But now it's very funny that like what are the odds of that happening? So I just had to look at the birthing pool for the rest of the time being empty. Um, but I was craving water so intensely at this point that I actually ended up getting in the shower and just having it cold.
Oh my God.
I can't explain the rationality in that, but I just needed to have water touching me.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't coming from a place of like being stubborn, or I just needed an element of water, and I
Mm,
can't explain it.
mm.
But I was in the shower and it was cold for over an hour.
Wow.
um, maybe it wasn't over an hour. Maybe I'm being dramatic. Definitely at least 30 minutes.
That's amazing. Was it like really cold? Like a really
No,
cold? No, it's like lukewarm or something.
it was like a pool,
Okay.
right? I would not
Yeah.
put it as warm.
Wow. It makes me fascinated because I've never heard anyone do that, right? It's always warm. It's always warm water.
Yeah,
And so I wonder what that like, because you know how like cold water can be really therapeutic and yeah. It just that just makes my midwife brain go like, oh, that due to the cervix and the body and would like what yeah. I'm just curious like how that affected you. If yeah, if that
yeah,
was positive or stalling or what happened for you. It sounds like
yeah.
maybe it was good for you. Obviously you wanted it and it helped you for half an hour.
Yeah, it was very helpful.
Mm.
Um,
Was that
I
pain relieving as well, even though it was cold?
Yes, so I was very aware that it could stall the like progress that I had been like moving along. So I was very aware of it. And my husband actually was standing outside of the shower. I had the shower curtain like closed, but he was just standing there the entire time, checking on like, is this okay? I think he was concerned that it was such a
Yeah.
key thing to do. Um, but no, I kept progressing. Nothing stalled, and I was aware of watching for that.
Well, at the
Um,
same time, there's women that birth in the ocean and in lakes that are
mm,
definitely not hot, that
yeah,
are, I mean, even in like, women in Russia, that would have been warm water in the
right.
ocean. And so water is healing, whatever kind of water it is. And if
Yeah,
you find it pleasurable, if you find it soothing, then your whole system would react to that. Obviously, you wouldn't stand in there if you were like you were cold or you were feeling uncomfortable. So it would progress you because it was something that gave you relief and gave you relaxation. Yeah, yeah, very curious. You're the first one I ever speak to who had a cold shower in labor. So that's
yeah.
fascinating. That's a new one for
I
me.
I don't think I would have done it if I had the choice of warm,
Yes,
but
of course.
I did. I had just had to,
A
and it
lot
did
of,
relax me.
yeah, I mean, a lot of women get very hot in labor as well. So, like, it could actually probably also have that effect if you were hot. I don't know if you were really hot or that was also maybe something
I
that would help.
wasn't at this point,
Mm.
but I did start getting very, very warm very soon after this. Um, so yeah, so the cold shower. And meanwhile, there's there's three maintenance crew working on the tub. So the which I allowed. I said, I whatever space my head was in, I said, yes, fix the tub. I need the tub.
Yeah, of
So
course.
in the shower, they had the maintenance crew trying to fix this tub, to the point that I got out of the shower and my midwife brought my yoga ball into the bathroom so that I could labor for a moment there while they're fixing the tub. Um, but I started slipping into La La Land at this point. This is when it started getting good, and exciting. This is when I remember, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Um,
I love
and
that
so,
reaction.
so excited and all the things, and I had my support, this is when, my husband started, I would, hold on. So I leave the bathroom with the maintenance crew still there. And my midwife says, do you want them to leave? I said, no, they need to fix the tub. Please, can they fix the tub? And I just don't mind at all. I'm now just doing my thing, laboring in just next to them, which is just silly. But I was getting stubborn. I said, I need the pool. I still was set. I need the pool. And so I didn't mind that they were there. So everything's getting more intense now. And my husband kind of holds my arm. His back is to, or his chest is to my back, and he holds kind of my forearms
Mm.
during my contractions and just takes my full weight and just like lets me kind of sway. Um, like he was involved that through all of that. And that was so helpful to me to just be able to sway without standing. I don't know,
Yeah,
but it
that's
helped a lot.
beautiful. I mean, that gives you movement and gives you comfort from like almost like a hug from behind and relieving you with the like you can put your pressure, your weight onto him. That's a beautiful thing to do. I love that. That's like slow dancing from behind.
It felt like that. Yeah. Yeah. If he like held me, snow
Yeah.
dance, slow dancing, holding me.
Mm.
Yeah. So we did that maybe through 4 or 5 rounds of contractions. And then I became just suddenly so tired, so tired. My body, my mind. I went and laid down for maybe, I think it was the first time, aside from getting my check. Um, it was the first time I laid down the entire time, and it had been maybe close to 8 hours. Well, no, 6 hours since I got to the hospital. And I lay down and I'm laying on my side, and my midwife brought me the peanut ball, and I'm just like resting my eyes, and I'm holding my husband's hand. He's sitting next to me, and things are, I'm feeling a lot of pressure, and so I'm like holding him tightly. And later, come to find out, it was at this time that this is no joke. I actually left like nail cuts. I actually ended up like causing an injury on his hand at this time, but it wasn't at this, I still wouldn't call it pain. I wasn't in pain.
Yeah.
It just felt intense and pressure, and
Yeah.
it was something I couldn't get through.
Yeah. Because the hormones were working optimally and you were really in the la la land, as you call it, in labor land. And this is the power of it. And, a lot of people think that, oh, you get exhausted. It's a part of the physiology to get tired, um, and like turn inward and have that moment. And there's nothing wrong with laboring like on the bed to have
Mm.
those moments, like to be especially on your side, maybe have, like you said, like a pillow or a peanut ball between your legs. And if you can like go into total relaxation, your body will open, your body will birth that baby in that position too. Like, um, it's about following your instincts, and it sounds like you really did. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with resting or lying down during labor in different periods. Obviously, not like the entire labor, potentially, right? You want to have movement, you want to have, but you would naturally feel that. If a woman truly tunes in, she will feel what she needs to do, which is not in her head, but in her primal birthing body.
Yeah. Yeah. All that. And that's where I was in that moment. I was relaxed in the pressure, and my eyes were closed, and I didn't think I was going to be able to do that. But I did. But very soon after that, maybe minutes, 5 minutes, um, I shot my eyes open, and I just remember fear. And I
Adrenaline surge, transition. Yes.
told my partner, I said, I can't do it. I have listened to you describe this so many times.
Yeah.
In the moment, it took me a second to catch it. So I remember saying the words to him, and luckily we had planned, Ben, this is what happens if this happens. This is what I need you to do if this happens. Like, and honestly, I give full credit to you and the knowledge that like you share on like me learning about what a transition is and what that process is. So we had the whole plan. I was not privy to that in the moment. And I said, Ben, I need the epidural. I can't do it. I can't do it. I need medicine. Like, nope, I can't do it. And he started laughing, but like a kind laugh of, he just smiled, and he said, yes, you can. You're there. You're there. This is happening. You're there. And I needed conversation. Like I needed almost a distraction
Mm.
through, because in my first, in my transition is when I took intervention.
Yeah, that's what happens to
It was,
most women. Yeah, because no one is somehow, generally, midwives, doctors, um, somehow don't understand what they need to do in transition for women. They
yes.
just go, oh yeah, here's the epidural. Like this is time. It's time for the epidural. Every woman asks for the epidural at some time during labor. This is it. Instead of going, oh, here's a woman in transition. If we can just hold her in this for however long it is. For some women transition is short. For some it's a couple of hours. It's longer.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know how long you're going to be in that. It helps though to have supportive people around you who very much are with you there, because this is what happens. Women just like you, just wake up with an adrenaline surge of fear, anxiety, restlessness. Nothing feels right. No position feels right. Everything feels wrong. There's panic. And that is the nature's way of waking you up, because you're so close to birthing your baby and you need that extra adrenaline to birth your baby. So it's nature's
Yeah.
way. It's normal, it's natural. It's called transition.
It
Um,
was an alarm clock from that restful state.
yeah,
And it was an alarm clock to, okay, wake up.
time. It's
It's
time.
time. Yeah. So he just is talking me through and encouraging me. And um, I was getting a little irritated. He wasn't doing what I wanted in that moment, which was to allow me to take intervention, which I didn't actually want, obviously. And so what actually ended up, so he got me through, I can't even tell you how long that was, minutes. It was short, no more than, again, 5 minutes. Um, and I then, another shocker, I remember my eyes opening even wider. I need the bathroom
Yes.
now. And I'm on my side and I have this peanut ball and I can't, like, I'm in a contraction, I can't move, and I'm like, oh my, I gotta go now. And so he like helps me up and I make my way, and he stays outside of the bathroom and I'm in the bathroom. For this time is gone at this point. There's no time. So I feel like I'm in there for a while, but I'm talking to him and I said, and I remember saying, my body's doing it. I'm not trying to push. He's coming now. And he said, oh, well, come on out here. Easier said than done. I was so comfortable in that position of sitting.
Mhm.
Um, and so, he calls my midwife and um, the student with her, and they're so calm. I said, no, I think because I was at 6, not that long before, kind of what you were saying that,
Remember though what I said. There's nothing such thing as
yeah,
a linear process, especially when your waters break. Totally time goes out the window. Like it can be 5 minutes from being 5 or 6 centimeters and having a baby. And also your second time mom. So even more so. And even
yeah,
having a vaginal examination also increases the speed. Like that can, make you open quicker as well, because you have some stimulation there as well of the cervix.
hopefully no one does the math on the times that I'm giving, but I think from the time that my waters broke and all the tub and the shower and laying down, like all of that, I think was about an hour.
Yeah, makes sense.
Um, so my midwife just kind of walks in and she's like, all right, like let's get up. Like, I can't. I physically cannot move. And I said, this is like I'm pushing. And not that she didn't believe me. It wasn't that she didn't believe me, but I think it just happened so quickly. She didn't realize how serious I was. Like, I'm birthing right now. So she's so kind. She like, I just remember her. It's like funny to me to think about. I'm sitting on the toilet. My midwife is standing in front of me, and my head is like on her abdomen, and she's just playing with my hair. And it was just very intimate. And just she's trying to like encourage me, like, okay, well, we can't birth on the potty. like this is not where this can happen right now. And I just so badly wanted a birthing stool in that moment because the position was right.
Yeah.
Uh, but they didn't have a birthing stool. And so I just, you know, she helps me. Eventually we start to, I'm like waddling out. Um, and we head to the bed, which I didn't think was going to be where I landed. Um, and I don't know if it just felt right to me in that moment or if that's where I was just being kind of guided. I don't know. Um, but I was not external any longer, right? I was very internal. And so yeah, I get on the bed and I forget what it's called, but like I am laying, but I'm sat upright and my feet are lowered.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
the bed was a transformer, like transformed
Yes.
into
Yeah.
like, different things. So yeah, so I'm not flat. I'm quite like I'm leaned up and my legs are lower. Um, yeah, I know that I started being very verbal, um, humming. As I started walking to the bed, that's when I started humming. And then that grew to more like moaning, but it was like primal.
Mm.
Like, I don't know how else not noises that I have ever made in my life. And I didn't expect it was more helpful than breathing.
Yeah.
That like allowed me to bear down that like low like
Mm-hmm.
noise coming out of me just um yeah, and I could feel him, which I didn't get the first time. um, I could feel him and I knew like where how to move my body, like I needed to angle, or like moving my legs and I don't remember what he said, but I remember my husband who's standing next to me, like, I'm so far gone that something needed to be told to me, and he had to like get
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea, like to bring me like out to hear what I don't remember, but something I had to hear. Um, it was a different world. It was, I was, there was no fear. I was so happy to be in the process. It was because everyone, I feel like the narrative is to be scared of the pushing. It was amazing. It was active,
Mm-hmm.
having to wait. It was like I could do something. I was in control. It was wonderful. Um, and then I again, hearing noises, was it inside or did everyone hear it? I don't know. But something just went pop. And I just said, what the fuck was that? And everyone started laughing because I was like, what was that? And my midwife said his head. And so his head like literally popped out. Um, yeah, the pushing was, I don't even think it was 10 minutes. It was so quick. And like I got everything. I'm so grateful that I got everything that I wanted after birth, that I didn't get in my first birth. And it was just wonderful.
So what was that? Did you get your baby up to your chest?
Yeah, immediately. So, um, yeah, came out and immediately just gave me my baby, which I did not get the first time. Um, and yeah, no one touched us. That was it. That was it. Gave him to me and everyone backed up.
How it should
And
be.
it was amazing. And
Mm.
it just allowed like both me and my husband to like, oh, this just happened. And we just like stared at him and at each other, and they backed up, and that's it. They gave us a blanket, and then they just yeah, waited. I think no one left, and they waited for me to birth my placenta. time was not a thing. I couldn't tell you how long that took. Um, but I remember being active in it versus my first birth. I was not active or even aware. I think that it was happening, which is so sad to not be aware of that stage. But um, I, I'll never forget how relieving it was. The best feeling ever
Mhm.
to birth my placenta. And just in that moment, I'm not pregnant. Like, I think I still felt pregnant in that time until I birthed my placenta. And then I remember like
Mm.
oh, I did it. I'm not pregnant. I'm so excited, right, to not be pregnant. I'm so excited. Um, yeah, so we had the delayed cord cutting. It was great. My husband cut the cord when it was time. Yeah. He nursed. He came out just wide-eyed, so alert, which is another difference. I found from my first to my second. He came out eyes open and nursed so quickly,
Yeah.
um, with no help, right? I was curious. I've heard so much about the crawl.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't experience that, but I tried not to help all that much. But
Mm.
yeah, he found me, and it was just easy. It was
Mm.
easy.
Beautiful. Nature's design is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
and that is it. Like, you know, not all babies, but most babies born through a natural physiological birth do come out alert, do come out primed to feed, to
Mhm.
imprint on you, to bond with you. They're so primed for life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Wow. What a beautiful, beautiful natural hospital birth story. I love hearing them because they're so bloody rare. So thank you for coming and sharing that with us. So if you had a first-time mama in front of you right now who's about to have her first baby and she really wants to have a natural and empowering birth experience, what advice and pearls of wisdoms would you give to
Um, I'm trying to think of the biggest one. I know like everyone says that, but like the main one.
her? There's so many.
There's so many. Um, what comes to my mind is trust, building a relationship with trust with yourself, like that, to get you through that transition, to like trust, right? Like to trust whatever plan you set for yourself, that like to trust you can do that. Like to just trust that, to trust yourself, to trust your body, to trust whoever your partner is, right? Whether it's a family member or like whoever, to trust your midwife, your team. Like if there's trust, right, so much fear goes out, and when there's no fear, your body can relax. Like your central nervous system is just like
Mhm.
at ease when there's no. So I think to trust, but also during postpartum, to let that trust carry through, um, and to trust that if someone offers you help, they genuinely want to help, right? Like to take the help, to trust that it's okay to accept help after. Yeah.
Yes,
Trust is the thing that comes to mind. And I think that weaves in like a lot of things, but just building a relationship with trust.
I love that so much. I think that's the cornerstone. So important. So important. You're so right. That's the biggest thing in a room that you feel like you really trust your midwife, trust your partner, trust your support team, doula, birth worker, whoever's there. Like, and obviously that you trust yourself and your own ability to birth your baby. And you trust your baby, you trust the sign of birth. Yeah, beautiful. I love that
Trust
connection.
your baby. I forgot that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. they know what to do.
They do. They also are birthing themselves as you
Yeah.
are birthing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes. Mhm.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm fangirling. I'm so excited to meet you and be here and speak with you. So thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please consider sharing it, leave a review, or make a contribution on our Patreon page. And if you want to connect on social media, then find the podcast on Instagram as the Natural Birth Podcast. Thank you for listening.